Now, live with Greg Olson, Director of the New York State Office for the Aging.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks so much for joining me. My name is Greg Olson. I'm Director of the New York State Office for Aging. You know, we do a lot of these shows on a variety of topics. Some of them are light and some of them are a little bit heavier. And this one's a little bit heavier than what we normally do, but it's extraordinarily important that we have this conversation. And so what we're going to be doing is talking a little bit today about World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, which is actually June 15th. And this is a global event to raise awareness of the cultural, social, economic, and demographic circumstances affecting elder abuse and neglect in all of its forms. Elder abuse, as I mentioned, takes a lot of different forms. We're going to talk about that today with our guests. It can happen in any setting, to any older person, by a loved one, a hired caregiver, or a stranger. It is also underreported significantly. And we'll get into some of those statistics later in the program. You know, it's good to highlight the importance of understanding the signs and symptoms, what you can do if you suspect somebody that you know or love or come across as being a victim of elder abuse. And that's what June 15th is really all about. But this isn't a one-day-a-year issue. This is 365 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that we need to be aware of this. The consequences to individuals in economically, socially, emotionally is absolutely devastating. And so it really takes an all hands on deck approach for the general public, for families, for people that are providing services, and everybody in between to really be aware of this issue because it really is devastating and it's significantly underreported. So again, today we are observing World Elder Abuse Awareness Day ahead of June 15th, and we're going to be running this program throughout the rest of the month. We do a lot throughout the year with our partners to raise awareness in elder abuse in all its forms, particularly the fastest growing elder abuse, which is financial fraud and scams. And so I'm so pleased to have three amazing people joining me today. Backed by popular demand is Anne Marie Cook, President and CEO of Lifespan of Greater Rochester. And for those of you where Anne Marie's been on the program in the past, quite a few times, know that I started my career 33 years ago at Lifespan. So she's been a longtime friend and a fantastic partner. So Anne Marie, thank you so much for being here. We also have for the first time, and I'm really excited, is Paul Kakamies, who's the Vice President of Programs at Lifespan of Greater Rochester. Their organization, among other things, operates the Upstate Elder Abuse Center, which provides resources and a network of professionals who work to impact positive outcomes in the protection of victims of elder abuse through intervention, education, and services. And that's just one of many things that Lifespan does, not only within New York, but are known and renowned nationally for the work. And that's really a testament to you too. So Paul, thank you for joining us. And I'm really pleased also to have one of our own join, Eric Jacobson, who's the Elder Abuse and EMDT Program Coordinator here at the New York State Office for Aging. And he's going to talk about some of the innovative work in New York State to address elder justice through a multidisciplinary approach. So the plan for today, once we get Eric up, there he is. Welcome, Eric. It's going to start at 30,000 feet, and then we're going to start to dig down because, you know, we always talk about New York being first in so many different things, and we have such a proud history going back to the 1920s in a variety of areas. But this is one area where, you know, again, we are absolutely leading the country, not only in the work that is happening, but the extensive partnerships that have been built over time through this work, through the leadership of Lifespan. Now with Eric on board, not that it's been new, he's been around here for a while, but you know, I think it's a lot to be proud of. So again, thanks for the three of you for joining me. Before we begin, I just want to read a quick disclaimer that the materials and information provided today are for informational use only and are in no way intended to constitute legal advice. Later in the program, we'll open up a conversation for any questions that any of you may have for our audience and our specialists here. And as always, we ask that your questions remain general in nature. And for any specific areas of concern, there's going to be additional resources provided today, especially if you have something personal that may have happened to you or somebody else. It's not something you want to air here, but we can make sure that you're connected to the right people. So let's start with the group, and anybody can jump in. Eric, why don't I start with you? What's World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, and what is the purpose of the recognition? And the third part of that is, what does it mean to you? And I'll ask each of you to address that. What does this mean to you? Why is it important?
Well, World Elder Abuse Awareness Day is honestly a day that really should be year-round, because elder abuse happens every day. It happens year-round. So we use today to highlight the issue, but it's kind of like you see those like don't drink and drive campaigns. Well, yes, you shouldn't drink and drive on when you see the big signs, but you also shouldn't drink and drive year-round. So it's important that we recognize this day and call attention to the issue. But, I always keep saying, like, it's really not just a day.
Completely agree. Anne Marie?
I would say, Greg, it's so important because I still think today people don't think elder abuse exists. And as we know from a lot of different studies, in particular, the one done here in New York, it happens in every community, in every ethnic and racial background. And it's really very damaging to older adults. I still think elder abuse is seen like child abuse was in domestic violence 40 years ago, that it's a family issue, and it's not. It's something we all need to address.
Paul?
Well, first of all, thank you, Greg, for the opportunity to share this day with you and the opportunity to observe World Elder Abuse Awareness Day with the people, the audience, and the people of New York, especially the older adults in New York State. As you said, this is we're going to give a 30,000-foot overview first, and at that level, World Elder Abuse Awareness Day is really a global phenomenon that was started in 2006 by a professor in Toronto, Elizabeth Podnieks, who's now deceased. Unfortunately, she died in 2024. In order to raise awareness about the abuse of older persons on a global scale. So this is not just something that's happening in New York, but also around the nation and, in fact, around the globe. And as Anne Marie said, elder mistreatment is common in every community, every economic group, every ethnic group in the U.S. And also, she indicated, our research has shown that 300,000 older adults in New York are affected, experience some form of elder mistreatment each year. So this is an opportunity to focus on all the factors, including ageism, and perhaps we can talk about that later, that contribute to the general disregard of the needs of older persons and to their mistreatment. We'll talk about those factors in greater depth later.
Yeah, and I'm all for the conversation on ageism. So let's go. We got a term, elder abuse. I think people would kind of understand what that means. Similar to child abuse, but let's really define it so the audience knows exactly what we're talking about. And I think folks would be really surprised at who the primary perpetrators are, of elder abuse. But just talk a little bit about what elder abuse is and what are the most common forms.
I think when people think about elder abuse, they think of physical abuse, but it can be so much more than that. It can be emotional or psychological abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, and of course, financial exploitation. And what we see here at Lifespan, and I know what we see across the state, is financial exploitation is present in the majority of elder abuse cases. And oftentimes it may start with financial exploitation and escalate to other forms of abuse.
And I want to add to that, they're often co-occurring.
Yeah, absolutely. We at Lifespan in our Upstate Elder Abuse Center, in our direct service program, the Elder Abuse Prevention Program, about 40% plus of our new cases are referred for financial exploitation. But when staff start digging below the surface, they find other forms of mistreatment, and the financial rises to about 60% of our cases.
Yeah, I mean, and those are stunning numbers. And we shouldn't just be paying attention to this because the population's getting older. I mean, that's even more reason to put more oomph and emphasis behind it. But we've always had a fairly large older adult population. But we're talking about 4.84 million people over the age of 60. That doesn't mean that everybody's vulnerable, but there's the possibility and opportunity that exists as somebody does get older. For a variety of reasons that you guys are going to talk about that make them much more of a successful target, not only on financial fraud, but some of the elder abuse. So what we also really want to talk about are what the signs and symptoms are, because again, it's one thing if you're within a family, you're seeing somebody every day. It's a whole different thing if you're the mailman or you work for the cable company and you're approaching somebody's home to be able to really recognize and hopefully if you see something, say something. So can you talk a little bit about the signs of elder abuse?
Sure, I can start with that. Anne Marie talked about physical abuse, and that's the kind of abuse that people usually think about first when you talk about abuse, physical maltreatment, and of course that can result in suspicious bruises and unexplained injuries. And then, other signs are poor hygiene, neglect of basic needs, which may be self-neglect, or it may be because of caregivers not attending to the physical needs and other necessities of older people. Isolation from family and friends, abrupt changes in spending habits, and the use of resources. Do older adults understand their financial resources, or they get confused about them because they've been isolated, they've been prevented from seeing the financial statements? And then there's also the situations in which we call it domestic violence grown old, where there's been a pattern of domestic conflict and even physical violence for many years, and then suddenly, couples are older, and that sort of violence continues. And then instances of emotional abuse, name calling, belittling, demeaning. And then, although we get very few cases of sexual abuse, I'm sure there's more out there than we know. It's not. I don't really think it's a very common form of abuse, but it does happen, and there may be physical or other signs of non-consensual sexual activity.
Does anybody want to add to that? No?
I think he's covered it.
Okay. I think one of the things, you guys were always on the map, but I think what really put you on the map was the prevalence study that you did. It really showed how underreported it is. So let's talk about your prevalence study and, why is it underreported and how so? And, what are some of the reasons?
Well, I think you can see on this slide, we know that over 300,000 older New Yorkers will be victims of elder abuse each year. And of course, that escalates over time. We've talked about financial exploitation as the most common form of elder abuse. And in this study, we interviewed 4,000 older New Yorkers to get this information. And obviously, what we found too was that it is so underreported. A lot of it is because of shame. A lot of it is embarrassment, because most of the time the perpetrator is a family member. So people are too embarrassed, too ashamed to call for help. We always want people to know help is available, and we will support you through the process. But as you can also see from this slide, it is incredibly expensive. This statistics here, about $1.5 billion a year is lost in financial exploitation, is an old number. It doesn't even account for the huge rise in scams that we've seen recently. So this number is really underreported.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of older adults, especially if the perpetrator is somebody within their circle, it's that fear of loss of autonomy. I'm going to wind up in a nursing home. I'm not going to be able to stay independent anymore. And you're right on that Office of Children and Family study. As significant as the 1.5 billion was, it was only a handful of counties in the state. It wasn't even a statewide analysis. So guys, who's most at risk? Because you talked about there's isolating somebody purposely if you live with them, but then we have a large population of isolated older adults in general. So, who would you say are those who are most at risk? So if the audience has somebody like this in their life, they're going to pay particular attention.
Oh, I'll jump in here and start, and others can do that. The most common victim is a woman in her 70s or 80s. Certainly, some of them have the beginnings of cognitive impairment, oftentimes isolated or lonely. And that's who we see is clear victims. Ordinarily, that's who we see as victims of elder abuse.
Let me jump in here because I want to make it clear that one of the myths that I often hear is that elder abuse takes place in nursing homes primarily, and that's the farthest thing from the truth. First of all, only about 5% of the older population is in a facility like a nursing home. So 95% are living in the community, with some degree of success or other. So most of the elder mistreatment that occurs takes place in the community, community dwelling older people, including that woman who's in her 70s or 80s who may be isolated and who may have lost her spouse recently and not familiar with taking care of finances on her own, and is very vulnerable to being exploited.
I'm going to add to that. I mean, it's, you also have people that are cognitively impaired, people that, there's a lot of, there's the myth that older adults don't use technology. They do. They use it a lot, but they also are not necessarily experts in it. So, you see a lot of text scams. You may get you'll get scammers that actually they'll check the obituaries. And, I think the other thing is, what we're putting out all of these profiles, I suppose you could say, but in the end, anybody could be targeted, particularly when it comes to scams, when it comes to fraud. I'm sure everybody's gotten the emails, the text messages on their phone. So yeah, I mean, it's just because you don't fit the profile we just laid out doesn't mean you shouldn't be vigilant.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you made that point, Eric, because I think we collectively, this group and many others, we focus a lot of attention on scam and fraud prevention and mitigation. But you are spot on. This is, every single age group. It's sophisticated. It's not all that hard to stop. It's just the stuff looks real, whether it's from the IRS or CMS or your local emergency operations center, the New York State Thruway, right? These are all the things that that we're seeing. So let's shift gears and for my Lifespan friends, talk a little bit about what Lifespan does. You guys are a multi-purpose, multi-service agency. It does a lot of things, but there's no question you guys are the state leader and kind of the head of the pin when it comes to this issue and what you guys do to assist not only us, but really partners across the state.
Well, I'll start. Lifespan, as you said, Greg, is a multi-service agency for older adults and family caregivers, and we certainly help them take on both the challenges and opportunities of longer life. We serve about 27,000 older adults and family caregivers a year, but certainly a cornerstone program for us is our elder abuse prevention work. It started in the late 1980s. I will credit Paul Kakamis, helping us start this program way back then. We only had 1.5 staff members devoted to elder abuse prevention at that time. And today we have 25 staff members devoted to that. So we do everything from education, training, outreach to direct intervention in elder abuse. And of course, when we partnered with the Office for Aging for You, we were also able to implement really an incredible enhanced multidisciplinary team model in every single county of New York State. I think it is one of the most innovative things we have ever done to prevent and appropriately intervene in elder abuse.
I would agree. I thought we were told we weren't supposed to go back into the 1980s to talk about Paul's time and this issue. So, but luckily you can do that because you work together. And you're right. And we're going to talk about the EMDTs later. I think whether it's elder abuse or anything else, anytime you're doing human type services, everything should be a multidisciplinary team. It's just kind of the nature of the game. So
Right.
Anne Marie and Paul, besides, this kickoff, and we do this every year to, again, I think Eric reiterated what I had said perfectly, which is, yeah, there is one day to bring worldwide attention to this, but this is a 365 day a year issue that we need to be paying attention to. So besides what we're doing today, what do you guys do to facilitate, the rest of our networks around the state? And I really got to, make a shout out to State APS and the Office of Children and Family Services that are also great partners with all of us. But what do you guys do to try to facilitate the awareness that June 15th really is designed to highlight?
Would you
Paul, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. I can talk about that. We're privileged to have the opportunity to coordinate things around the state. Of course, each region, each county has its own plan. But in terms of a statewide campaign, we decided this year that we would choose a joyful aging. Here's, if you can see this or not, joyful aging as the theme. Building a future without elder abuse as the theme, and we have these yard signs and posters in several languages, Spanish, of course, and in about 10 other languages that we've distributed to offices for the aging and some adult protective service units around the state, as well as these pinwheels, which represent the large number of cases that occur in New York State. So we've done that locally. We're sponsoring a press conference. We have a training today, as a matter of fact, on this open to anyone on Zoom, online, on elder abuse and neglect. And then we have an in-person conference scheduled for June 17th. I know that other areas have in-person conferences. I know Syracuse does next week. And also we've as an ancillary activity, we asked schools around the area to have kids produce what we call kindness cards, for older adults in nursing homes or those who are isolated. And we got about 300 different cards. I wish I could show them to you on this broadcast, because some of them are very humorous and very touching. And so we'll be distributing those to persons in nursing homes as well as in the community, perhaps through Meals on Wheels providers for persons who are lonely and isolated.
Greg, I want to add too, you may be traveling from Niagara Falls to Albany to New York City, and you saw a few of the pictures from previous years, but we have state buildings lit up in purple throughout the state. And so if you're driving and you see purple, that is in recognition of World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. And we want the entire state lit in purple to show everybody that we as a state are recognizing this important day.
Yeah, we got to thank the governor for, again, agreeing to do that. It's important. And I love the idea of the cards from kids to people in nursing homes. Both of my daughters did that on their own accord during the pandemic, just to bring some cheer and some light to some folks. So we're going to take a quick break. As always, you never know what you're going to get with the New York State Office for Aging. So let's take a look at this video.
Each year on World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, the New York State Office for the Aging presents the Art Mason Award for Elder Justice. This award recognizes an individual who has demonstrated long-standing commitment to elder justice and to protecting vulnerable older adults. Last year, I was honored to receive this award. I so appreciated being recognized for my role as a prosecutor, working on domestic violence and elder abuse cases, as well as my more recent work as coordinator for Nassau County's Elder Abuse Enhanced Multidisciplinary Team, the EMDT, through Family and Children's Association. It has become a tradition at NYSOFA for the most recent honoree to announce the newest recipient of the Art Mason Award each year. The 2025 award goes to an individual who has been working for decades as a champion for elder justice. Paul Kankamisi is Vice President for Program of Lifespan of Greater Rochester, where he provides administrative and clinical oversight for agency programs with a focus on elder abuse programs and programs targeting older adults at risk of mistreatment. These include the Upstate Elder Abuse Center, Regional Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program, Guardianship, and the Recovery and Wellness Program. In that role, which he has held for 20 years, Paul engages in strategic planning and program budget development, overseeing activities of the New York State Coalition on Elder Abuse, sponsored by Lifespan, and the implementation of the Office of Victim Services and Victims of Crime Act Elder Abuse Interventions and the Enhanced Multidisciplinary Team Initiative at Lifespan. Paul has also helped develop elder justice coalitions in several other states and has a national reputation in the field of elder justice. Paul participates in many committees related to advocacy for elder justice and aging services legislation, funding, and programs. He was project director of the groundbreaking New York State Elder Abuse Prevalence Study and has received several honors, including the State Award for Outstanding Service and Dedication to Protecting Vulnerable Adults, Social Worker of the Year from the National Association of Social Workers, New York State Genesee Valley Division, and the National Collaboration Award from the National Adult Protective Services Association, also known as NAPSA. On a personal note, I've met Paul many, many years ago. I can't even remember when, but I remember this. When I first met him, I remember thinking he seemed so nice. And after years of working with him on all kinds of projects, I have to say I was right. Not only is he nice, he is so smart and he's so kind and he cares about the victims and everybody he works with. And so I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that about Paul, that he really is truly a wonderful person. Paul, it gives me great pleasure to announce this award and to be a part of NYSOFA's efforts to recognize you today. Congratulations, friend. You deserve it.
Thank you, Arlene.
I
Before you say anything, Paul, hang on a second. Turn it over to Anne Marie.
I just wanted to add, that was such a beautiful tribute from Arlene, but I just wanted to add a few more points. You will not find a more humble person than Paul Kakamas. He has a undergraduate degree from Harvard, a master's degree from Smith College. He has overseen the New York State Prevalence Study. He's the director of the National Center for State and Tribal Elder Justice Coalitions. And Paul is a wonderful, wonderful person, as Marlene said. My office is opposite him, and oftentimes I can hear him speaking directly to clients, supporting them, helping them, sometimes in multiple different languages, because he helps us out with that, and still goes out and will do home visits for folks. Paul has worked in this field for over 40 years. And he not only deserves this recognition, he deserves national recognition for all the work he's done. And if I may add, years and years ago, Paul went to Russia to help set up their child protective services. He is so skilled working with vulnerable people. Paul, it has been very difficult for me to hide this from you, but incredible that you're receiving this honor and recognition that is so well deserved.
Yep. And Paul, hang on one second. And then we'll let you speak. I know this kind of sideswiped you.
Yep.
Can't say congratulations enough. I've always said if social workers ruled the world, we wouldn't have half the problems that we have. So that, you're a fellow social worker. I'm not surprised at all. You're really and I don't mean quiet in a bad way. I mean it in a real good way. A quiet champion with no bluster, just focus, strength, and commitment. You're so well respected for your knowledge and your passion, and everybody seems to have the same theme, and a genuinely nice guy, because you are. And you really radiate calmness in an industry that revolves around chaos. And I think that's really, really important. So this recognition is so well deserved. And I would like to present you with the Art Mason Advocacy Award in recognition of over 50 years of your leadership in the field of elder abuse prevention and ongoing commitment to elder justice. Paul has devoted his entire career to awareness, outreach, training, education, and direct intervention to ensure that older people in New York State live lives free of abuse and mistreatment. So, Paul, on behalf of all of us at the New York State Office for Aging, all the people you work with at Lifespan and across New York State, a well-deserved honor, and now you may speak.
I'm not sure what to say. I'm sort of stunned, and this was not on the agenda, Greg.
That's true.
So it's sort of like a professional ambush here, but I'm not sure I can continue with this session. No, this means so much to me. I'm very, very honored, especially because of it came from Arlene. Arlene was the one to present this, and I hold her in such high esteem, and also because it's named after Art, who was my colleague when I was in Adult Protective Services at Monroe County DSS, and also here when he headed before he retired, he headed up the Upstate Elder Abuse Center and did so much to build the program. So I owe a lot to him. Actually, he was my supervisee here, but he taught me a whole lot while he was under my supervision. So thank you very much. This means a tremendous amount to me. It's difficult to hear all the things that I supposedly have done in my career. It sounds overwhelming, actually. But it's been my privilege to work with such committed colleagues in New York State, which is one reason it's humbling to get this, because we have such national leaders here. And not only those who have earned this award before me, but those of you who are represented here, Anne Marie, Eric, Greg, and many others in the state. So I appreciate this more than you can know, and thank you very much.
Well deserved. So I'm going to give you a quick round of applause. Hopefully everybody else will.
Let me just say one other thing. When I started working in Adult Protective in 1985, there was virtually no attention paid to elder abuse or even APS at that time. It was kind of the backwater of social work and human services. And, the first prevalence study in the nation really didn't take place until 1988. And Carl Pillemer and his colleagues did that on the East Coast. But, since then, it's really developed and grown into the tremendous network of services that we see now. And it's not just me that's had the privilege of contributing to it, but so many others. I think we have good reason to celebrate joyful aging this year.
Well, I would agree with you. And I mean, going back to what Anne Marie said in the history where you guys had, when you started, one staff and now have 25. I mean, unfortunately, this work is difficult, whether it be this or other types of social services. It's hard. But it's a testament to the dedication of people like the three of you, and we could name a million other names, that you stay at it, you build it, it gets bigger, it takes on a life of its own, and hopefully we get to a day where we don't have to do this anymore. I think sometimes people bring out the worst in themselves, and it has a terrible impact on other people. So again, Paul, congratulations from all three of us, the agency, the state of New York, for all your contributions, and hopefully continuing to do that.
Thank you. And now let's go back to the actual work.
All right, let's shift gears again, and let's head into little state level. What are we doing here at the state level to take action on this issue? Whether that be, Eric, I'll start with you because you're at the State Office for Aging. But a lot of our work not only happens here, but happens with partners like Lifespan.
So New York State has long time been a leader in this area. We provide funding for elder abuse prevention and interventions. We are a national leader with the enhanced multidisciplinary teams. We have expanded victim support services. The New York State Office of Victims Services recently is implementing some changes where the increased compensation, making it easier to request compensation. We have done, we're nearing the end of a process of developing a master plan on aging and elder abuse issues was a huge part of that. And, there's always a consumer protection focus in this state as well, that ties right in with combating financial exploitation. And, coming down a little bit to New York State Office for the Aging, they just put up the slide. We have our scam brochure. We have done a series of videos, scam videos with Lifespan to help educate folks. So yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot going on.
Yes, right? I could take up the rest of the time.
Yeah. And in addition to the things you mentioned, for years we've gotten support from the governor and the legislature to provide funding for organizations like Lifespan, some other legal services providers. We're obviously paying attention to what's happening at the federal level, especially where victim services money is concerned, because that's one of the major foundations for the EMDT. And we'll talk a little bit more about what an EMDT is in a bit. But for Paul and Anne Marie, the job is never done, right? There's always more things that we could do. And what do you see as the gaps in elder abuse services, and what's more that we can do? I mean, obviously, we're all trying to increase resources, to bring more attention, et cetera. But are there other gaps or things that we could be doing, collectively?
Yeah, Greg, there are so many things that we could talk about. One thing that we've done here is kind of have an innovative elder abuse shelter model. I have to give credit to the Hebrew Home down in New York City, who also has a shelter model and kind of coordinates across the country. But, for those individuals who are physically at risk, that shelter model is key for us as we do our work. We need to expand that more. And many places don't have that kind of model. We also work very closely to get safe and affordable housing to older adults who need to move for a variety of reasons. And, that's difficult today to access some of that safe and affordable housing for people. And certainly we work all the time to get orders of protections for people, and we need to do more of that and expedite that process. But I think in general, we have seen some trends, continued abuse and power of attorney abuse, which gets people access to individuals' funds. Eric has talked a little bit about this, and maybe we can expand upon it later. We've seen a huge explosion in scams, in which, I would say 10 years ago, we didn't even address in the elder abuse. We kind of kept that off to its side, but it's been so explosive. We brought this in very closely to elder abuse to address those scams too. I'm sure others have things to add.
Yeah, I'd like to build on your focus on fraud and scams, because it certainly is a growing industry. I'm not sure if the viewers understand that by elder abuse, we usually refer to maltreatment that's perpetrated by persons who are known and trusted by the victim. And fraud and scams are usually perpetrated by persons who are strangers, persons who call you on the phone or contact you by online, who are not known to you, and then find a way to exploit. But we have one of the few fraud independent or distinct fraud and scam programs in the state. We have 3 people do nothing but presentations and training on fraud and scams, and then help individual victims in the 12-county area. And I'd like to put in a plea for replicating that model in all areas of the state. I think it's definitely needed. The reports that come out of the Federal Trade Commission, including the report from 2024, show that scams are skyrocketing. Consumers report losing over $12 billion in 2024. And a lot of those losses are borne by older people because they have more money than younger people. Younger people are more prone to falling for scams, but when older people do, they lose more because they have more to lose. And we're seeing imposter scams, and also now AI scams and crypto scams, which require a kind of retraining and reorientation of our staff, because it's a new new form of exploitation.
Yeah, so we're going
Just
to,
add a couple things to that.
if it's on scams, I'm going to ask you to hold because we're going to get
no.
there.
Oh no, it's exactly on scams.
Okay, so hold that thought because before we break for our next segment, we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about scams. But one of the things I just wanted to highlight that Paul had mentioned, with Dan Lyon, Justin McCabe, and the team, they do go out and do, if there's somebody wants a in-person or a Zoom presentation, they had been up until this year limited to the 12 county region. We have been able to provide Lifespan with the resources where if you're not in that 12 county region and you're interested in having these guys come out and they do a tremendous job, former detective and former police officer, in really talking about this issue, that they can accommodate that now with NYSOFA's support. So before we get into scams, because that is a really, really important topic, I just want to close out first EMDT. We haven't really talked about that, but then close that down, and then we can get into a little scam conversation before we end. So, Eric, tell us what an EMDT actually is, right? We are so great at acronyms about everything, but I'd say the overwhelming majority of people have no idea what an MDT is and what makes it an E. How are they developed? What's the structure?
Well, MDT's multidisciplinary teams, and in this case, the E does not stand for Eric, but for enhanced. And they're county-based teams. They're coordinated statewide, overseen by NYSOFA, coordinated statewide by Lifespan in partnership with the Center for Elder Abuse Solutions in New York City. And what it boils down to is you've got local professionals sitting in a room discussing elder abuse cases. You've got APS, you've got aging services, law enforcement, district attorneys, healthcare. Some teams sometimes will have representatives from the FBI, the IRS, the Postal Service even, and they discuss, they review, and come up with interventions, tailored, person-centered, recommended interventions for elder abuse cases. It really is, the analogy I make, generally speaking, is, when you go to the doctor and you sign something that says your doctor can talk to other doctors about what's wrong with you. It's similar to that. And every county has an EMDT coordinator, and the enhancements, each team has access to a forensic accountant, a mental health professional, and civil legal services. And those are all paid for so that the team and the team members and the elder abuse victims don't have to incur those costs, or the law enforcement and APS don't have to incur the costs. And like I said, they come up with recommendations that then the professionals that bring these cases to the teams take back to the older adults, and it's what tailored to each specific case. So you've got it may be, well, we recommend a power of attorney or changing your power of attorney. We recommend maybe if someone who's living with you may be trying to find a different living arrangement. From 2014 to 2023, EMDT interventions led to a reported $4.8 million in ordered restitution in financial exploitation cases. Statewide, there's about 1,000 cases that get referred to EMDTs every year. And, a few years ago, we did worked with SUNY Albany on a program evaluation of the EMDTs. And over 90% of EMDT members that we surveyed said that the EMDT model is effective at leading to positive outcomes for elder abuse victims. And, I just want to quickly thank, not only the leadership at NYSOFA, but at, this governor, the legislator, for providing funding. We get funding from the New York State Office of Victim Services, and also, the folks at Lifespan, the folks at the Center for Elder Abuse Solution, and the other 10 to 12 other not-for-profits statewide that work on us with this initiative. And I'll just close that out by saying, if you're a professional and you're thinking, how do I contact my local EMDT coordinator? NYSEMDT.org. Um,
And I appreciate you saying that. I remember getting a phone call years ago from a person out in Western New York. Her name was Anne Marie Cook. That said, we have this grant we would love to apply for, but you have to apply for it, Greg. Would you be willing to work with us on that? And of course, I was all in, and that's what created the first. We weren't statewide at that point, but I think the key of what you had said, because you've all said this in your own different way, what makes it so unique and special is that if somebody is a victim of elder abuse in any of its forms, it's going to impact every facet of their life, which is why you have to bring in these different partners with different experience that can leverage different assets, whether it be law enforcement, district attorneys, local adult protective services, not-for-profit, housing, transportation, public health, et cetera. And that's what makes it so unique, is you're looking, to Eric's point, at serving people holistically and from a person-centered way. So, Eric, how does somebody report elder abuse? I know that, we always say it's kind of like the subway motto, right? If you see something, say something.
Yeah.
If they suspect it but may not have details, they're not, they're not liable or going to get in trouble by trying to do the right thing. So how do people go about that if they suspect?
Well, I mean, the first thing you can do is call your local adult protective services, and you can. There's a statewide hotline, 1-844-697-3505. That'll get you to where you need to go, or you can just Google it. And they will take they'll take your information. They'll look into it. If it's not a case they can take, they will. They'll transfer. They'll work with folks like Lifespan or law enforcement, the local EMDT, to get it to people who can help. So it's. Sometimes you hear, well, APS didn't do this, can't do this. There's legal limits as to what they can do, but that doesn't mean they just turn their back.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because not every case triggers an adult protective service case. And so you highlighting that they're part of these EMDTs with us locally. They work with all of us at the state level. And just because somebody may not trigger an actual investigation or to be on a formal APS case doesn't mean that's the end of the story. We do have a strong, two-way communication network amongst all of our partners that we could still get people the help that they need.
I'd like to
Go ahead, Paul.
Add something here, and that is for individuals who are not sure about an elder abuse case or are concerned about an older adult. We also have another service in New York called the Helpline for Concerned Persons, which CEAS, Center for Elder Abuse Solutions in New York City at Weill Cornell Medical Center, operates with Lifespan. We cover the upstate area. They cover New York City area. And you can call the helpline to get consultation on whether the smoke you see, is really fire, and what to do, what steps you can take in order to protect the person that you're concerned about.
I'd like to give that phone number if it's okay, Greg, because we find a lot of people are concerned about older adults, but don't understand if it's abuse. That number is 844-746-6905. They will get connected to a clinical social worker who will help walk through, maybe direct folks to call Adult Protective Services, or maybe give them the resource for the New York State Office for Aging or other resources that may help.
No, man, I see Alex just put the number up, so he's Johnny on the spot. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah. Hey, Greg, I just want to say too, a couple minutes ago, he put up the link to NYSOFA's elder abuse webpage. And there's a link to the helpline on there. Oh, and there it is again. There's a link to the helpline on there. There's a link to APS on there. There's links to Office of Victim Services, all kinds of resources, the scam guide and the scam videos as well. So that, if you only want to take away one thing, that's your one-stop shop.
Yeah, and it's not like, us as an agency or Lifespan, we're connected to each other. There are so many resources that are out there, whether it be scam or other types of abuse. So, to Eric's point, the big takeaway is not to remember every single thing that we said, but where that place is to go to get more info. So I got one more question, and let's get back to scams. There's a lot of numbers going around. I've heard, 3 billion. I've heard, 29 to 52 billion dollars. But the point is that the dollars are somebody that were stolen, and again, the physical, the independence, the mental impact on being a victim of a scam can be overwhelming. So as a group, there are a million scams, but we're tracking what the top 10 are, and for some of the listeners, here's how crazy some of them are. There was a scam during the pandemic that had my name in it. And a woman from Vermont was going to her winter home in Florida, got a text that had my name on it, looked me up, saw that I was who they claimed I was, clicked the button and lost everything, her identity, her all her credentials, checking, etc. We've seen things going out from a local county emergency operations center that looked exactly like an emergency alert. Eric had mentioned a couple of the things earlier, but there's so many different types of scams. Can you talk about some of the most recent ones? I know, Paul, you just mentioned AI, but there's a bunch of them.
Would you like me to start, Anne Marie? Sure. Yeah, one of the most common ones we see now are imposter scams, especially romance scams, in which older adults somehow on Facebook or another platform get connected to individuals who are posing as romantic interests, and then eventually, when the relationship is formed, ask for money on one pretext or another. One of our clients was convinced that Michael Strahan, was he on Good Morning America, the ex-football player, Today or Good Morning America, needed funding to come to Rochester to visit her because his contract with NBC wasn't signed yet, so he needed some cash. And she was really convinced that he was interested in her and was coming to Rochester, and lost some money that way. So a lot of romance scams, text scams are prevalent. Even the grandparent scam, which is an old timer, but it's still floating out there, and some people are vulnerable to that. As I said, AI scams and crypto are beginning to, raise their ugly heads. And sweepstakes, lottery scams are still around.
I would say too, we also see government imposter scams. We still see IRS government imposter. And like you said, Greg, you're a government official and doing that too. So scams are out there, and they're getting more sophisticated and look more and more real every single day.
Alex was just mentioning a DMV ID scam that he's getting texts. And I think, one of the most insidious that I've seen recently is the Amazon scam, where somebody will literally send, they bought something, have it delivered to your home. And then if you want to know who it's from, you hit the QR code, and the QR code, then takes over your phone. I'm sorry, Eric, were you going to?
It's another one. Yeah.
No?
You're good.
So, I mean, we're all talking about how to be vigilant to not get scammed, how sophisticated the folks are, and they are. But it's not that hard to protect yourself. And that's what a lot of the resources that we have are. We always tell people, if you don't recognize a phone number of somebody calling you, don't answer the phone. If it's somebody they'll leave a message. If you get any texts or emails that have active links in them, regardless of who they came from, you can double check that. The government is never going to send you something asking for your social security number, whether that be from the IRS or Medicaid or Medicare. So it's not as hard as we think. You just got to take a second and stop before you act. So let's take another break here and check this out. Almost all of us order items online, but know this about your parcel deliveries. No shipping company like UPS or FedEx will text you or email you. Only the company you ordered from will notify you. The rest are simply just scams. Hi, my name is Greg Olson, and I'm the director of the New York State Office for Aging.
And if you receive a text or an email that looks like it's from a shipping company, whatever you do, don't click the link. Report these types of scams to the ftc.gov. If you provided personal information, file it with your local police and identitytheft.gov. Hi, I'm Dan Lyon, Program Manager here at Lifespan of Greater Rochester.
And I'm Anne Marie Cook, the President and CEO of Lifespan. If someone reaches out asking for money or personal information, always remember, close the link, hang up the phone, and contact a trusted source instead.
Scammers are unbelievably sophisticated. If you want more information on how to protect yourself, please visit our website at the New York State Office for Aging, as well as our social media feeds, and make sure that you are a smart consumer and know exactly what to do to protect yourself. So that was just one. I want to thank Anne Marie and Dan for allowing us to shoot these. We did about 7 different videos on some of the most common scams. One of them was at a federal credit union, and what we're seeing now with a lot of banks and credit unions is they have a full-time person that is dedicated to this particular issue. But as we were in the parking lot filming at a credit union outside of Rochester, 3 people pulled up who were all older as we were taping. And jokingly, I was like, do you want to jump in on this? And you could talk. And then all 3 of them had been scammed within the last year. So they all recognized it. The reason we showed you that is because this is the fastest growing issue in terms of elder abuse. All of it is critically important, but financial exploitation and scams are devastating, not only to the older adult, but to their family members. And, you know, we have the scam guides. Lifespan has a tremendous amount of material. They do the public presentations. You know, they've been working with Department of Financial Services to, you know, train bank tellers and financial institutions on, you know, what to be able to look for in terms of protection. So it's something you can do on your own in order to protect yourselves or those that you love. It affects everybody's family. As Eric had said, my daughter's Venmo account, all the money was taken from that. My mom was one of those that got something on her computer that said it was corrupt. Just press the button. She got that. I get the one. I got one from my credit union, which had was sold to somebody else. It looked exactly like what the old credit union was that my bank was, and I had to pull over and make a phone call, and they said, yeah, it's a scam. So it's, to Eric's point, it hits everybody. We're focused on older adults and families, obviously, but this is a huge issue. We are just about out of time. I'm going to give you each 15 seconds. If there's anything you want to say or reiterate, please, now's your time.
Well, besides,
you go first, Paul.
Yeah, I want to say something about scams and a service that's available through Lifespan throughout the state, actually, so it might be of interest to the viewers. And that is, we've started support groups for persons who have fallen victims of scams. And if they would like to join a support group online, can do it anonymously if they like. They can call 585-244-8400 and ask for the Upstate Elder Abuse Center. They're welcome to join us. It's held once a week online. And I do want to end by saying thank you again for this incredible award. I really appreciate it.
That's fantastic on the support groups. And by the way, while we were in this production, Arlene emailed and said, congratulations, Paul.
Thank you. I will be in touch with her.
I think I'll just end it, Greg, by saying, you know, we were so thrilled that all those school children did all of those kindness cards to older adults. I just ask everybody to be kind like they were. Watch out for older adults. If you do see something, say something, and you can call the helpline anonymously and just run through a situation or report abuse itself. I think it's up to all of us to protect all older people so they can live free of mistreatment.
Eric?
You know, first I want to say congratulations to Paul. I've known Paul. He's, I think, one of the first people I met when I started this job in 2018. And I don't think I've ever met a smarter, kinder, more dedicated person. And I just want to reiterate, you know, education on scams, education on elder abuse is key. You know, Lifespan has they mentioned the scam training guys that they have a whole musical routine they do. I've been known to go out and do less entertaining trainings than them, but
Awesome. Well, I can't thank all of you for joining us. Anne Marie, thank you. Eric, thank you. Paul, the man of the hour, congratulations and thank you. As always, these productions would not run if we didn't have an amazing communications team. I want to thank Alex, Darren, and Roger. And for all of you, please, like our Facebook page and share this with anybody and everybody that you know. And again, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Live with Greg is a production of the New York State Office for the Aging Communications Bureau. Please join us next time.